Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Sammy. Let's start with something we basically already agree on. 0.5 is arguably the best patch this game has ever had. Retention's through the roof, players are staying longer, and by pretty much every measure I've covered on this channel, people are having more fun with this game than ever before. That's not up for debate today. Buried inside all of this success, there's a smaller group of you saying something that doesn't quite fit the picture. One of you said the more you play, the more it starts to feel like a job. Another one laid out something more specific than even a good loot drop right now doesn't feel like a win. It feels like relief, not yes, more like finally, about time. Here's why I think this actually matters beyond this one league though. Based on what GGG said, their whole goal here isn't just making you happy in the moment, it's making sure you're satisfied enough to come back and do it again next league. That's the actual formula this game runs on. And we're about 5 months out from 1.0 at this point, which also means the game goes fully free to play and a massive new audience is going to walk in and try it for the first time. So whatever this formula actually is, good, bad, somewhere in between, it needs to be right because a lot more people are about to find out what it really feels like. So here's the actual question for today. Is this game actually fun enough right now that people keep coming back? Or is it just fair enough that people tolerate it? In order to answer this question, I dug up some prior comments from GGG as far as I could track down. Not everything, just what I found and is relevant. And I want to hold it up against what all of you are telling me. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we move forward, I want to actually establish the backdrop properly, like I always do, because the rest of this video only makes sense once it's clear how strong 0.5 overall reception has been. Retention numbers are the best they've ever been. The broad sentiment across all the comments in my recent videos has consistently leaned towards this patch being the best state the game's ever been in. And the coverage outside by other content creators and online has largely echoed that too. That's the dominant reality here. And I don't want anything in this video to get read as arguing against that. So what we're actually looking at today is the game good? That's already answered for most of the player base in my humble opinion. It's inside a genuine success story. What's happening with the smaller group who aren't feeling it the same way? That it's starting to feel like a job comment kicked off a real argument in the replies of my last video. Some of you agreed straight up. Some pushed back hard, saying that's a mindset choice. Nobody's forcing you to min-max every single map. Both were fair points. But the comment sitting right underneath it, the one I want to dig into, because it's more specific than this feels bad. The actual claim was that the loot experience with zero investment needs to already be satisfying on its own. And if it's below that bar, players won't stick around long enough to ever reach the point where putting in a real effort would pay off. That's a genuinely specific complaint, not just vibes. Let's see if it actually lines up with anything GGG themselves have said. So quick disclaimer before I get into this. I'm not claiming this is everything GGG has ever said on the topic. I'm sure there's more out there that I haven't seen, but based on the interviews that I tracked down, this exact tension seems to be something they've already thought about more than once and over a long stretch of time. One of them is the Ziggy D Q&A that just happened on May 7th, 2026, and it ties to this current patch where GGG talked about looking at Steam reviews specifically to understand why someone might have over 400 hours in this game and still leave a negative review. Their read on it going into that discussion was that when there's no natural stopping point in the game, eventually everything gets boring and people leave unsatisfied instead of leaving happy. Their stated goal, in their own words, was wanting players to leave with a plan to come back next time, not just burn out and quit. Here's the part that surprised me though. I found a second interview, this one from back in November of 2024, before the game had even launched into early access. And Jonathan was already talking about almost the exact same problem, talking about why random item drops matter so much. He said that without the chance of something great dropping at any moment, you finish one grind only to see the next massive one stretching out ahead of you with no payoff in sight. And that's exactly the moment someone might decide to quit. So, based on what I found, at minimum, this isn't a new concern for them. It's something that shows up in their own words over a year apart. Whether what's actually in the game right now matches that intention, that's the real question. Before I give you my take, I kind of want to steelman the strongest disagreement I found in the comments because it's a genuinely smart point and I don't want to just skip past it. One of you argued that a lot of burnout isn't really the game's fault at all. It's from comparing yourself to streamers who've gotten 10 times the hours, years of accumulated knowledge, and an entire community feeding them optimized strategies. The actual argument was that people fill their limited playtime trying to keep up with that instead of just playing what they find fun. And that's what burns them out, not the drop rates themselves. Genuinely fair point, and I don't think it cancels out what the other comments are describing, but I think it's a real separate piece of the puzzle worth holding alongside it. Okay, so where do I actually land myself? Based on everything I've got in front of me, not the full picture, just what I found, I don't think this changes the overall verdict on 05 at all. The retention, the broad sentiment, all of that stands. What I can say is GGG has stated more than once across a pretty long stretch of time that they want the floor to feel satisfying and they want players to leave happy rather than burned out. That looks like a real sustained intention, not just a talking point for one interview. But even inside a genuine success story, intention and outcome aren't automatically the same thing for every single player. Most of you are clearly getting the experience GGG's aiming for. A smaller group is describing something closer to the opposite. Relief instead of joy. That doesn't undo the big picture, but it's worth naming honestly instead of pretending it doesn't exist just because it's a minority. Here's something else worth throwing into this though, because based on what I found, GGG has been pretty explicit about it. They've said directly, more than once, that they don't actually expect or even want you to play the whole league. Their stated goal is just have fun, do what you want to do, and then stop and come back next time. And I'm paraphrasing there, obviously. In the same interview I mentioned earlier, Jonathan talked about deliberately not wanting to hold on to players forever, calling that old subscription MMO mindset of trying to keep everyone playing endlessly ultimately self-defeating because it just burns people out instead. So here's the thing worth sitting with. If GGG genuinely never expects anyone to grind the entire league, then some of that it feels like a job feeling might not be a floor problem at all. It might be the players putting an obligation on themselves that the game was never actually asking for in the first place. That's not me saying the floor complaint isn't real. I think it still is for some of you, but it's a second, separate thread tangled up in the same feeling. And I think this actually gives us a real way to answer the question I put in the title. GGG's stated goal, based on what I found, was never every single moment has to feel like pure joy. It was give players something satisfying enough that they finish what they want and come back next league. So the real test isn't whether every comment describes joy instead of relief. The real test is whether people are actually coming back. And by that measure, based on what we already know about this league, the answer, in my humble opinion, looks pretty clear. It's a resounding yes. Retention right now is the best it's ever been. That's not a vibe. That's the literal thing GGG said they were aiming for. So is PoE2 fun for every individual moment? Obviously, it's a mixed reaction to that based on your own comments. Is it fair in the sense of actually hitting what GGG set out to build? Based on the numbers we're seeing, yeah, it looks like it is. So here's where I'll leave it. 0.5 deserves all the praise it's getting. That's not in question. GGG has said, at least in what I could track down, that the goal was never nonstop joy. It was a satisfying enough stretch that you come back next time. And based on retention alone, that goal's clearly landing for most of you, even with a real smaller group still describing something closer to relief than reward. Both of these things can be true at once, and I don't think it's a contradiction. I think that just what a genuinely good live service game actually looks like up close. I say that because, let's be real, not every player is gonna be happy. It's just human nature. So tell me honestly, is this game loop actually working for you? Not just one good drop, the whole thing. Will you actually be back for next league when this one wraps up? Or are you already feeling done before it's even over? And speaking of actually understanding this community better instead of guessing, I've got a server running right now trying to map out how Path of Exile 2 players are actually earning currency this league. Are you just playing casually? Are you a flipper? Are you a crafter? Are you a juicer and farmer? And roughly how much you're actually making from it. If you haven't filled it out yet, link is in the description. The survey will take about 5 minutes. It's fully anonymous. We are not taking any personal information. Just want to put that out there. I want real numbers instead of just reading comments. So the more of you that answer, the more useful the results actually are. And I'll be breaking down what we find in a dedicated video in the future once enough responses are in. So please, if you can spare 5 minutes, go and participate in this PoE2 community survey. Thank you. And like always, if there's something else going on in Path of Exile 2 you want me digging into, drop it below. I read every single comment. All right, everybody, that's it for today. If you're new here, hit subscribe. Hit that like button too if you got something out of this. And come catch me live every evening on YouTube and Twitch. Links, as always, are in the description. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really do appreciate it. And as always, we'll hope to see you on the next one. Take care. The opinions expressed in this video are mine and solely mine. Healthy debate is always encouraged. Hate is never welcomed. So get over it.